साथियों, कांग्रेस और डीएमके पार्टी के एक और पाखंड की चर्चा आज पूरा देश कर रहा है। जब कांग्रेस की सरकार थी, तब कई दशक पहले इन लोगों ने कच्चातीवू आइलैंड श्रीलंका को दे दिया। किस कैबिनेट में ये निर्णय हुआ, किसके फायदे के लिए फैसला हुआ, इस पर कांग्रेस की बोलती बंद है। उस आइलैंड के पास जाने पर तमिलनाडु के हजारों मछुआरे गिरफ्तार हुए हैं। गिरफ्तारी पर कांग्रेस और डीएमके झूठी हमदर्दी दिखाते हैं।
We have Captain Alok Bansal, who is the director of India Foundation, and today we will be talking to him about the Katchatheevu Island and the controversy that is surrounding it. So, Alok ji, my first question to you is, I would like you to tell the audience what exactly is the dispute that is related to the Katchatheevu Island.
See, Katchatheevu is actually a very small island in Pak, and it is approximately 200 odd acres island. It's uninhabited island, and during the British period, this used to be part of Ramnathpuram Jagir. The Zamidar of Ramnathpuram actually claimed that this belonged to him, and similarly, the island, only worthwhile structure on the island is actually a church, which is St. Anthony's Church. And this church used to belong to Archdiocese of Jaffna. And as a result, there was some confusion right from the British period as to who it belonged to. In post-independent India, again, there was a conflict, and both the countries claimed this island to be theirs. Eventually, in 70s, during Mrs. Gandhi's tenure, India-Sri Lanka maritime boundary was delineated, and this island was given to Sri Lanka. The maritime boundary passed very close to Katchatheevu Island, and India was accorded certain rights. There is a St. Anthony's Fair which takes place, for which fishermen from India also go and participate. Also, the traditional rights of trying their nets, etc., were accorded to India.
So you had said that post-independence also, there was this island was it was the conflict was surrounding this island. Apparently, there have been news that the then Prime Minister Nehru, he said that we don't attach any importance to this island. So why so? I mean, if it is our property, I mean, and why did no importance was attached to it? Was there some vested interest with regards to that? Or was he not able to assess the situation? Because in the present scenario, what we see is that everything is like surrounding geopolitics, and it is very strategically important for India, more so when China has their interest. So could you just give us a brief about that?
It is said that Nehru said so, though I have not really come across any empirical evidence to say that Pandit Nehru said that. I don't think so. During Nehru's time, this was as big an issue, because please understand, till 60s, there was actually train link between India and Sri Lanka. There used to actually a train come all the way up to Dhanushkoti, and then travel all the way to Sri Lanka, and you could actually travel by train from India to Sri Lanka. Until then, our economies were quite intertwined. We used to have joint exercises between navies, where all Commonwealth navies used to come and congregate in Trincomalee. So we had a very close relationship. The relations between India and Sri Lanka started deteriorating subsequently, and during Lal Bahadur Shastri's time, it had become bad when plantation Tamils issue became, and then we had Shastri-Sirimao Pact, under which India agreed to take a certain number of plantation Tamils initially. And then, of course, things changed. And it was during Mrs. Gandhi's tenure, when Mrs. Gandhi was the Prime Minister and Sirimao Bandaranaike was the Prime Minister, that this island was given. Now, as far as this island's geopolitical significance is concerned, I'm really not very well aware of any geopolitical significance. But the island has a very, very important role as far as fishing is concerned, because the waters surrounding the island are extremely rich in fish stocks, and fishermen invariably from Rameshwaram, Mandapam, etc., go close to the island and fish there. And in fact, when the Sri Lankan civil war was going on, the line of control which the Indian Navy had created, beyond which Indian fishermen were not permitted to go, extended south of Katchatheevu. So Indian fishermen during the Sri Lankan civil war were going up to Katchatheevu and fishing in that area. It's only after the civil war ended and LTT was completely vanquished that Sri Lankan fishermen again started venturing into these waters, and we have now started seeing again an issue of conflict.
Okay. My next question is, why did Sri Lanka pursued hardly to get this island, which had been, uninhabited for like quite some time? That's like another question here.
See, this even today, this island is uninhabited. Let's be very clear, except when that St. Anthony's Fair takes place, when there are actually 2-3 days there people come and gather on this island. And otherwise, when fishermen come occasionally to dry their nets. Now, when you have a dispute between two countries, this sort of an issue often comes up because it becomes an extremely emotive issue and people want to assert. And Sri Lanka probably felt, and as I said, the waters surrounding the island are very rich in fish stock. Invariably, when wherever there is vegetation, the fish actually thrives there, because fish also needs some organic material to eat and survive. Since Katchatheevu is an island, there is fair amount of fish around this particular island, and fishermen from Sri Lanka and India both would come. And of course, there was religious reasons. The church that is there is actually considered to be a protector of the fishermen, and fishermen from both sides come for that St. Anthony's Fair when it happens, as and when it takes place. And as a result, both the countries were contesting, and India, as a larger country in 70s, decided that though the maritime boundary will pass very close to Katchatheevu, the island per se was given to Sri Lanka with certain rights reserved for Indian fishermen, which probably got diluted in due course. And that has been one of the contentious issues that's been raised from time to time.
Okay, my next question to you is, sir, it's now being used by the Sri Lankan Navy also, that particular island. And a couple of years ago, the Chinese officials in dhotis apparently visited the island and they took a survey. It was condemned by India. For India, it is a strategically, again, I'm reiterating that it is important in terms of defense in protecting the southern side of the maritime territory. Why was the Congress government so careless in ceding the rights to the Sri Lankan government?
See, I think at that point of time, Mrs. Gandhi probably wanted good relations with Sri Lanka, and with Mrs. Bandaranaike, we had reasonably good relations after a period of tenuous relations between India and Sri Lanka. And it was a new government. You had the first two lady leaders in the world, actually. Sirimao Bandaranaike was the first women president, and of course, Mrs. Gandhi was amongst the first three women leaders of the world. So I think they had a good equation, and I think that part of that, it was decided. As far as Chinese survey is concerned, it's an issue of concern, because Chinese could be surveying for hydrocarbons, could be surveying for anything. I don't think so Chinese can come there for a maritime or a defense infrastructure, because that would be objected to. And under India-Sri Lanka Accord of 1987, any enemy country inimical to India coming into these areas will create a problem. And I think India would have the right to protest, and we can, to a very great extent, counter any inimical force coming. Also, please understand, to enter Pak Bay, you have to pass through very narrow straits, and Pak Strait, which actually passes very close to Point Calimere, which is an Indian territory, and it doesn't allow any major ship or big ship to enter the Pak Bay. In fact, that's where DMK government had one stage tried to create a Setu Samudram canal, which as it turned out was good to know neither man or beast, because it didn't make any sense. And now it has been actually stalled, that Setu Samudram canal. But the usage of Katchatheevu as a major naval base or a military base is not really feasible. Neither the island is as big, nor the waters surrounding it are deep enough to allow any major naval ship or vessel to come around. Sri Lankan Navy generally has very, very small boats. In fact, those boats which we would call, they are not bigger than sometimes fishing boats, etc. They have very small boats. So maybe they have created some sort of a facility for these boats to come close to the island, anchor, or create a small jetty sort of a thing where these boats can come and berth. Because, as I said, this island is very, very close to the international maritime boundary line between India and Sri Lanka. So maybe they have been coming there. I still feel that India and Sri Lanka issues in this particular area are can be amicably resolved to a very great extent. The fishermen are there. The fish stock has been falling, and the competition has increased after the Sri Lankan civil war, because throughout the period of civil war, starting from 80s till 2009, there were no Sri Lankan fishermen in this area. Because of civil war, they were not permitted to venture out to sea. And as a result, there was adequate fish stock for everyone. But ever since Sri Lankans fishermen have also started venturing out to sea, there is a pressure on the limited fish stock. And there is, of course, contentions. There have been issues where Indian fishermen who traditionally have been going to this area have gone. And there have been times when Sri Lankan Navy have acted tough with them. And we have had to counter. As early as 1980s, if you remember, we had actually captured 2 of Sri Lanka's naval ships. By our Coast Guard ships had captured them, actually, because when they found that they were venturing into our waters, and they were apprehended and brought to Indian waters and then subsequently released. So it has been happening. This sort of a thing has been happening for some time. And I think this needs to be resolved. I think this conflict that we often see between fishermen from the 2 countries has a potential to escalate into a major conflict. And for a country like India, which wants good neighborly relations with all our neighbors, and we want to lead the South Asia, I think we need to resolve these issues bilaterally, and we need to get this issue to be resolved. And I think fishermen who are both sides of the side, either we can have a common fishing ground where both Indian and Sri Lankan fishermen can go and fish into entire sea waters, or have some way by which Indian fishermen's traditional rights are not infringed upon.
Okay. Alokji, here in the beginning, you said that the 2 ladies were at the helm of affairs, and India apparently did not want to, kind of have disruption of bilateral relations. Having said that, the stature of India, and it was whatever I could figure out, it was in probably 1970s that this thing, Mrs. Gandhi kind of seeded it. So at that point of time, it was just like a year or 2 ago that Mrs. Gandhi was really so-called she was being addressed as the Iron Lady, because she'd won the Bangladesh war and everything else. Why it's being questioned is, when you are such a big country, okay, and you are strong in every sense, how could you just let that go? That is the point.
Well, it's difficult for me to comment on this issue because this is more a political question. And why did Mrs. Gandhi do that is for her advisors to answer. But there is no doubt that, yes, we had managed to liberate Bangladesh. Until 75, we had very good relations with Bangladesh. And I think that was the time when we wanted to have improve relations all round. In fact, even with Pakistan, after their crushing defeat in 71, was coming around to accepting India's supremacy to some extent and was accepting India's trying to build up good relations with India. I think in that attempt to build a good relations, because what has happened was that in 70s, there was also a leftist insurgency in Sri Lanka. If you remember, JVP had actually a major insurgency, and Indian government provided actually military support to the Sri Lankan government. And I think we did not want that Sri Lanka should fall, or some power which is inimical to India should find a presence into Sri Lanka. And I think it is at this juncture, I think we probably felt that we needed to have good relations. And I think in that sort of a situation, I think this delineation was done. Very often when we are negotiating with our smaller neighbors, we tend to be a little magnanimous. We have seen it in different boundary agreements with different countries at different points of time.
Okay. Why is the DMK government getting so rattled about this whole issue that has been raised right now? I mean, have they been like fooling the people all this time?
See, DMK has a problem, actually. If you look at it, that's what I was trying to tell you. That DMK actually sunk in billions of dollars trying to create a Setu Samudram canal through this particular region, which is not good for man or beast. Please understand, anybody who understands maritime matters or understands navigation would realize that a Setu Samudram canal through the Pak Bay would have been a disaster for anyone. But they managed to sell it, and the government of the time, at that point of time, the UPA government, I don't know, for whatever their compulsions was, went ahead and tried to destroy that Adams Bridge, or Ram Setu as we call it, and tried to construct a canal. But there can be nothing more disastrous. It was actually a disaster economically, it was a disaster environmentally, and now having committed such blunders, now they want to cover up their tracks and try and raise these issues. Please understand, when this island was ceded to Sri Lanka, also DMK was in power in Tamil Nadu. They did not raise any questions. They did not raise any issues. So their aim has always been obfuscation, trying to divert attention, try to do something. Please remember, when IPKF, after gallantly fighting in Sri Lanka, returned, the DMK chief minister of the day refused to receive them. Now, you may have your political differences. You don't actually belittle your armed forces. And that's what the then chief minister of Tamil Nadu did it. So DMK has always had a slight anti-national agenda. And in fact, this is a party which has often taken steps which are not in the interest of the country. And as I said, you can see, if today a dispassionate audit is done of the Setu Samudram project, you will come to know that crores and crores of rupees have been wasted for a project which has not seen the light of the day and will never see the light of the day. So that's how things have happened. So DMK probably wants to divert attention from their follies and take people onto a different track and raise issues which did not exist.
Is this the main reason why the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin, is getting rattled when Prime Minister Modi raised this issue, and he is I would like to say that he's unnecessarily accusing Prime Minister Modi for raising this issue. I don't think so. Prime Minister Modi is doing anything wrong if he is trying to get back our very own territory. So, do you think this is one of the main reasons for Mr. Stalin?
I have no doubts. I think it is at this point of time, as you know, there's a parliamentary elections going on. The environment is surcharged, and DMK sees that their support base has eroded considerably. And I think probably for this strange reasons, that they are accusing the Prime Minister of raising this issue and of trying to divert attention. Because if you see, Tamil Nadu under the DMK government has really not done well. In fact, its performance has not been very good, and the corruption has increased. And as I said, there have been so many cases where DMK has been involved in projects which have not really seen the light of the day and were not in the interest of the state or the country.
Okay. Are there any official documents that are available which about the parlays that have taken between Sri Lanka and the Indian side before the Indian government gifted the Katchatheevu Island to Sri Lanka? Do we have anything such like?
There would have been discussions, but I'm not privy whether they are unclassified and are available to the layman like me. But the agreement per se is, of course, in black and white. We can see the agreement which was signed by two countries, and having signed the agreement, now it becomes a binding agreement on the two countries, and that is how, unfortunately, the norm. Of course, the traditional rights, as I said, of the fishermen, which have been infringed over a period of time, is what we need to enforce and ensure that our fishermen have their traditional rights to use the island and its land for their traditional rights, and that we should ensure that there is no dilution of those traditional rights.
Okay, Alokji, one thing that I want to, how do you see Prime Minister Modi, working towards resolving this issue?
I think under Prime Minister Modi, we have had very good and very cordial relations with almost all our neighbors. In fact, right from the time he became the Prime Minister, he has actually gone this extra step to have friendly relations with our neighbors. In fact, he invited all the leaders for his first swearing in, as you remember. So that was a very, very definitive step. And I think under his leadership, India has emerged as a power to reckon with on the international stage, as well as regionally. India has emerged as a leader of South Asia. And I'm sure we have very good relations with Sri Lanka. We have managed to get Sri Lanka out of a very, very major economic crisis. And Sri Lankan government has repeatedly said that they are extremely indebted to India for bailing them out from this crisis. And I'm sure Prime Minister Modi will be successful in ensuring that the Indian fishermen have their traditional rights in Katchatheevu Island, which were diluted over the years, are restored to them. I have no doubts that post the elections, you would see that he would be in a position to negotiate with the Sri Lankan government and bring them to allow Indian fishermen to use Katchatheevu Island for all their traditional rights, which includes drying of nets and other rights.
Okay, do you also see this thing that Prime Minister Modi has been talking about Akhand Bharat? So do you think that this is part of that strategy of his, wherein he wants that to correct all the historical blunders that have been done?
See, for Akhand Bharat, we have to go through South Asian Economic Union and South Asian Union. Akhand Bharat is a very, very grand idea and a very, very desirable idea. In fact, India's manifest destiny lies in Akhand Bharat. We have to strive to create an Akhand Bharat that includes all these territories which come into India and become a part and parcel of India. And I'm sure Prime Minister Modi, when he invited all these heads of state for his first swearing in, that was actually the first manifestation of his vision of Akhand Bharat, where all these countries become part and parcel of an India, which is huge. I think to that extent, his diplomacy has been doing a work. I don't think so getting a small territory here or there contributes towards Akhand Bharat. Akhand Bharat wants actually the entire Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, all South Asian countries to come together. It may not be called Akhand Bharat. You could call it South Asian Union. You could call it South Asian Economic Union. That is the roadmap. We have to create a integrated structure for entire South Asia, which would be de facto Akhand Bharat, may not be called Akhand Bharat, but we will have to create that for India to grow and attain its rightful place in the Committee of Nations.
So, what we can say is that this is a small step towards that. And can we also say that he is trying to correct the historical blunders that have been done? Because this is just one of them that is there. We have seen what the former Prime Minister of India, Nehru, did in the Northeast, trying to appease his masters in China. So, and then off late also there are reports regarding another island somewhere in the West Asia, not the island, some territory in the West Asia, which was ceded. So, I guess that is what we can say, that this is once that he is just trying to correct all the historical blunders. Can we say that?
The Prime Minister Modi is trying to take India to make it a global power, which is our manifest destiny, and that's what he has done. I think no other leader has done as much to take India to this level of leadership. And I think to that extent, he's doing whatever needs to be done. In fact, he has ensured, and in fact, when you're dealing with your neighbors, you have to have both the policies of carrot and stick. And I think he has managed to inculcate very good relations with all of them. I think this may have been a historical wrong which he's trying to rectify, because what has happened is that even when we agreed to accept that Katchatheevu as part of Sri Lanka, we in no way gave away the rights of our fishermen to use this island. And I think those rights are diluted over a period of time. I think what he's trying to say is that these rights were done away, were diluted, and the provincial government, which was DMK, or the central government, which was UPA, did nothing to rectify that. And that is what is important, I think so. And that's what we need to do that. Eventually, I'm of the firm view that we need to connect all these neighbors with us rather than detach them from us. So we have to create Akhand Bharat or South Asian Union that we have to create. And that requires connecting. We need to rebuild the Ram Setu. We need to have another bridge connecting Dhanushkoti to Talai Mannar, so that Sri Lanka becomes a part of Indian transport infrastructure, the transport network. And similarly, in all the neighboring countries, we need to connect them with us so that we can eventually create a South Asian Union, which would in effect be an Akhand Bharat de facto, but maybe called a South Asian Union or South Asian Economic Union or whatever it is. That is the roadmap to that. Because eventually we realize that all the countries of these regions are historically, culturally one. Their economies are intertwined, their destinies are intertwined, their histories are intertwined, and we have to strive to bring them together.
Okay, one last question, Alokji. And how do you see BJP performing in Tamil Nadu?
Well, I must confess I'm not a political analyst and I won't be doing, but BJP has been growing in strength. Whenever I have gone there, I went to Coimbatore, I saw support for BJP in Coimbatore was very high. I understand even in Kanyakumari and surrounding areas, the BJP has been gaining grounds. And BJP, I'm sure, would gain ground. I think in the past, they did not have a strong organization probably in Tamil Nadu. But if you remember, there was a very, very significant chunk of population in Tamil Nadu, which initially used to support Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And there was a very, very strong component which continued to support Forward Bloc even after India gained independence. In fact, Forward Bloc had a very, very significant chunk of voters in Tamil Nadu. I am sure this nationalist vote bank would eventually graduate towards BJP, and it has already graduated because Forward Bloc has now become a non-entity. So all these people who used to support Netaji from the colonial period, I'm sure are looking for a strong nationalist party, and I think they would probably support the BJP.
Okay, because you took Coimbatore's name, so what is your take on it? Because Annamalai is like at the helm of things out over there. So what are his chances that you see?
Well, I haven't been to Coimbatore. Let me confess, I haven't been there for some time. But as I said, I feel very strongly that that's one constituency where BJP has a very, very strong chance of winning.
Any specific number that you have in mind for BJP in Tamil Nadu?
I won't hazard a guess. I'm not a psephologist and I wouldn't like to do that. As I said, I am a geopolitical analyst who deals with international relations. I am really not a politician or a political analyst to hazard. But as I said, it seems BJP is doing fairly well. And as I said, BJP needs to harness the votes that used to go to forward bloc traditionally, which were a very, very strong chunk, and which I think we need to get, because they were with Netaji because they had a nationalist feeling. Of course, Thevar community was there in a very big way supporting Netaji. We should try and get them back to BJP to support a nationalist agenda.
Okay, Alokji, thank you so much for your valuable time and giving the insights about the Katchatheevu Island, which I'm sure is going to be a big, big eye opener for all our audience, and the insight and the valuable information that you have given to us about Tamil Nadu also. Thank you so much, Alokji.
Thank you.